It's time for Reason.
The government is nothing more in this situation than the big bad wolf in the cloak of a sheep, trying to look like the innocent little grandmother, trying to look like the innocent little Red Riding Hood when she knocks on the door the first time to intrude into the house to eat the grandmother. The government is the dangerous one in this situation, and we're allowing them to investigate Facebook for things that the private market can solve itself in the private sector.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
Oh, yeah, welcome into the Voice of Reason, broadcasting live out of the heart of the nation here in Wichita, Kansas, on the Big Talker KQAM, simulcasting on KGPT TV, and broadcasting across the entire Mid-America network. Welcome aboard. What's happening? It's a Thursday. It's great to have you along today. The pre-Friday celebration has begun. It is one of the greatest days of the entire week. I know that you're excited about that. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK if you want to join into the program. We got a heck of a show for you today, heck and a half, really. Lots to get to today. Coming up in hour number 3, State Senator Ty Masterson will be in studio with us for the entire hour, giving us an update from the legislative session, giving us an update on the $80 million error for the educational finance bill, giving us an update on tax debates and whatever else is happening in Topeka. So I am really excited about that. The next 2 hours, though, it's open lines to you. There's a lot of things happening right now. The congressional hearings heated up yesterday with Mark Zuckerberg, and I really don't care anymore because what else? I ask again, what will we get out of it? What will we get out of it? Will we get any type of legislation saying, okay, Facebook, you need to accept everybody? If that's the case, then are we violating the private sector's right to be able to choose who they want to have as customers? Because that sounds nice, but at the same time, is that going to be a hypocritical thing that we want the government to take care of our business? The only thing I would like to see out of this would be for the government to say, you know what, you're not allowed to pass along information and private data to other companies to be able to sell information of your customers to other people. But that's not going to happen because the government does the same thing. But apparently, according to the Wall Street Journal, that the interview process had many of the many of the congressmen and women yesterday kind of ramp up their questionnaring when it came to Mark Zuckerberg. So we may play some of those audio clips a little bit later in the show. If you want to talk about that, you're more than welcome to do so. But ladies and gentlemen, there's something way bigger, way more important, way more pressing, way more. It is the top issue that we should all be discussing probably for this entire 3 hours of the program. It is some breaking news. Maybe. There it is. Hey! Breaking news of the morning. You've heard of Russian collusion and Russian spies. But do we have any Chinese spies? And could it be our very own, from the 4th Congressional District, former House member, former CIA director, and now current, or almost going to be current, Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo? Could he be a Chinese spy? Could he be colluding with the Chinese when it comes to, I'm not joking here. This, according to Kansas.com, CIA Director Mike Pompeo failed to disclose last year that he owned a Kansas business that imported oil field equipment from a company owned by a Chinese government. Oh my gosh. I don't know what we will do with this type of information. We will probably all keel over and die. I don't think that any of us will be able to survive this type of intel. I don't think that we will be able to ever trust Mike Pompeo ever again in our entire lives, because Mike Pompeo has a business that bought products from a company that was owned by the Chinese government. I know, it's terrible. It's almost like, when a politician maybe buys a tie that maybe have been manufactured and it has a little tag on it that says made in China. It's almost like if a office or a company, any company really in the country, actually had or bought maybe some paper clips that were made in Korea or Vietnam. It's almost like there's a Democrat that actually wants to create a new fiasco in the government. This is how desperate the progressives actually are to try and stop not only Mike Pompeo, but stop the Donald Trump administration, to stop whatever they can to try and halt the approval of Mike Pompeo. Because remember, Mike Pompeo, if you remember the story we read about a week or so ago, Mike Pompeo is one of those evil, terrible, he hates Middle Eastern individuals. He hates Muslims. He works with extremist anti-Muslim organizations, apparently. He has said derogatory, terrible, horrible things about Muslim, which I don't remember hearing any of those, but he said those apparently, so we should just take them at their word as a third party trying to relay that information on to us to teach us about what Mike Pompeo has said before. I mean, even as a constituent from the 4th Congressional District who has lived under Mike Pompeo in this congressional district, I don't remember hearing that, but that doesn't matter. Someone in New York City that has told us that Mike Pompeo hates Muslims, we should take them at their word. So therefore, we should not approve Mike Pompeo needing to become Secretary of State, because not only does he hate Muslims and that he'd be treating them unfairly, but he is now a Chinese spy because his company purchased products that happen to be manufactured and sold by a Chinese government business. Democratic Senator Ben Cardin, if there's any inconsistency in his questionnaire, that would be a matter of major interest. We expect Director Pompeo to be able to explain exactly what financial entanglement he had with the Chinese government and why he failed to disclose it. You know, you're right. You're right. And I wonder, did you buy a tie this year that had the little tag made in China? I need to look at your financial records over the last 5 years, really, to make sure that you didn't purchase anything else from China. Because if you went to Walmart to buy a toy for your kid that said made in China, then we probably need to look into that, because you may be a Chinese agent. I don't know. I wonder if you have any ties to any, Vietnam or China or Taiwan or Korea or any of these other nations that may manufacture something, and you bought something either online or you bought something in the store that was made and purchased from over there, manufactured over there. We need to look at your financial history. We need to look at your financial backing. Mr. Pompeo was the president for an American company in Kansas that sold products made in many different countries, Canada and China, just to name two. In fact, the paper clips the company used were from Taiwan, according to a spokesman from the CIA. He would have no reason to know the details on where all these products come from. The last year, the questionnaire that he filled out during the Senate Intelligence Committee asked, quote, here's what the question said. During the past 10 years, have you or your spouse received any compensation from or have been involved in any financial business transaction with a foreign government or any entity controlled by a foreign government? If so, please provide details. He put no, when apparently he should have put yes, because he purchased products that might have been manufactured over there. And now look, it might have been a private company from China that he purchased them from, because the government owns a company that actually sells these parts for an oil field. He purchased these products. Now, the way that other governments work, in case some are not familiar with this, and many on the progressive side apparently don't grasp the concept because they're so involved in what happens here in evil corporations, is that the governments in many other nations, including China, many of these companies are owned through the government because they have government control over the entire economy. They're not capitalists as we are. Most companies around here actually have their own prerogative to do what they will, for the most part, without very much government regulation in there, trying to control who they're allowed to sell to, what they're allowed to manufacture. I take that back. We have something called the Environmental Protection Agency. I'm sorry. But other than that, we have, for most part, a lot of free reign on what our businesses are allowed to do. In China and in many other nations that are not capitalist free marketeer systems, the government owns them. So if you go and you purchase something online and you purchase it from a Chinese company, more than likely that company is owned, quote unquote, regulated and controlled by the Chinese government, which means you just bought something from the Chinese government, which means that you are probably a Chinese agent, just as Donald Trump is probably a Russian agent, or has Russian agents working for him, because he had done business transactions potentially with different Russians throughout the years of him actually being a businessman. I don't know if you saw the story as well that popped up that said that the NRA had received about $2,500 total from different elected officials that had ties with Russian individuals as well. That means that they had, at some point in their life, done business with someone from Russia, and therefore they're colluding with a Russian agent or Russian individual, and then they donated to the NRA, which means that they're getting dirty money from Russia, and oh my gosh, I mean, come on. Yeah. This is literally how desperate that many of these progressives are, because if they find any little tie anywhere to where they link you up with somebody, then they will use that and say that you are now colluding, you are now corrupted, you are now not thinking on your own accord, you're now being bought off because that you have some tie with them. I ask you again, Democrats, did you buy a tie in China or from China that has a little tag that says made in China? Donald Trump's ties were made in China. I wonder if that means that he's a Chinese agent. This is how sad, this is how pathetic, this is how desperate the Democrats and the progressives are right now. Mike Pompeo is in no way, shape, or form colluding with China or does not have any type of special interest in China. He had purchased products for his business that came from some Chinese company overseas that he shipped in for his oil fields or for whatever oil field equipment that he needed, and now he did not disclose that, so now we need to be all worked up. We need to be up in arms. We need to hate him with a passion, and we need to fight his nomination for Secretary of State, because now apparently he's not qualified for that position, and we probably need to start a new investigation to open it up and understand where Mike Pompeo's getting all of his stuff, what he's doing with his finances, and if he is, in some way, shape, or form, a Russian or a Chinese agent. I'm going to leave that one there. This is The Voice of Reason. Lots to get to today. Stay here.
You're listening to The Voice of Reason on the Mid-America Network.
Talking about. Welcome into The Voice of Reason, making it happen today on a Thursday, the pre-Friday celebration, kicking off in high gear, baby, starting off your day the right way. Better than a cup of coffee, a shot of espresso, an energy drink, whatever you do in the morning to get yourself pumped up. This is the show. We make you feel like you're jumping into a rock concert at 6 a.m. because that's what we like to do. 316-721-8255. By the way, I do have to say, I don't know if it has anything to do with the hearings on Facebook, because it happened for a day. The Facebook hearings, Mark Zuckerberg happening, and the congressional hearings, and they're grilling him, the silencing, the censoring of many conservative organizations and outlets. And all of a sudden yesterday, our Facebook Live numbers doubled than what we usually have as an average. Now, we float usually pretty decently on a daily basis. Yesterday, for whatever reason, I don't know if maybe it was the content, which, maybe I stepped up my game yesterday. I don't know. Maybe it was because of the accessibility, or maybe because maybe it wasn't, the algorithms changed a little bit and it wasn't censored as much. But our Facebook Live number, which was so awesome, our Facebook Live numbers yesterday doubled than what our normal daily hits are. So we appreciate that very much. Thank you. If you get an opportunity, go to facebook.com/1480KQAM. I guess if we're going to start fighting the censoring from Mark Zuckerberg, now's the time to do it. Now is the time for us to do it. Like the page, go on there, find the Facebook Live, like it, leave a comment, just say good morning on there. Let's get some activity going on it. Share it onto your own page, whatever you want to do. But let's keep this rolling, baby. We had a double than what we usually do on a normal basis yesterday, which is really, really cool. And we appreciate that very much. We're on TV, we're on radio, we're on Facebook, we're on the internet, we're on online streaming, the TuneIn app. We're on just about everywhere you can. We appreciate that very, very much. 316-721-8255. Let's go to the phones this morning. Line number 1. Good morning. What's your name?
Scott.
What's going on, Scott?
Well, I don't know why they just got Mark Zuckerberg up there, because Fox, CNN, New York Times, Washington Post, CBS, and ABC are all owned by the Israelis, and they're trying to get the United States in a war with Iran.
Wait, the Israelis are trying to get us in a war with Iran?
Yeah, but they don't like the Iranians. They really don't care for the Syrians.
Well, I don't know if they're trying to get us into a war with them. Israel's been one of those nations to where they don't go out of their way to start a war, but they sure don't let anybody try and push them around because they kind of have to. They've been fighting to people who's been trying to drive them off their land for a long, long time. The Palestinians, Hamas. You can look at all the other nations around there. They despise the fact that Israel is actually what it is today. So they don't go out of their way to start wars, but they don't like to actually be bullied around like they do for just about every single day.
Well, I mean, these TV stations and stuff, all of those are working together for propaganda for their bosses in Israel, and they want to have a war with those guys because, I mean, I can understand that the Iranians want to have a war with the Israelis too, but I mean, it's all spelled war and death for the United States.
Well, here's the thing, and I know that it was a big issue, especially during George W. Bush's time when it came to the conflicts over in the Middle East and whether we should invade, we shouldn't invade, how they handled it. I think it was handled extremely terribly. I personally supported a lot of the intervention that happened in the Middle East at that time, and I still do. And I think that we do need to have a presence over there, and we do need to intervene at times because these are individuals who. A lot of those dictators now, if we dethrone them, sometimes we just come out with someone that's way worse. But if we dethrone, ideologically, they do not like who we stand for as a nation. They do not like who we are as Americans. They do not like the fact that we treat women the same as men. They do not like the fact that we have a lot of freedoms without the government. Some of them don't like the religious fact that we are more of a Christian nation instead of a Muslim nation. They just don't like that fact. And the Muslims and the Israelis, the Jewish individuals, the Jewish people, they've been fighting for thousands of years, and that's never going to change. And so there's always going to be that conflict. And the fact that Israel is an ally, we need to stand firm with them and allow them to have a little bit of the free reign to defend themselves the way they need to. If you listen to the media, which the media, and this is why I kind of disagree with where your sentiment is on the media's front, the media attacks Israel left and right all the time. When the rockets are being shot off between Hamas and Israel back and forth almost on a daily basis, they blame Israel. Israel's terrible. Israel's going after Hamas. Israel's trying to attack them. Israel just won't play nice. Israel isn't being very fair in the region, and they're just causing ruckus in the region. When the fact is, all they're doing is defending their nation, and Hamas has been the one that's trying to invade them and destroy Israel for years. And all they do is when they send a rocket over, then Israel sends one back, and then the media comes out and says, "Oh, look how terrible Israel's been because they're attacking Hamas." And we don't get both sides of the story. So the media is in no way, shape, or form a defendant of Israel, really at all.
Well, like I said, since they're owned by the Israelis, they're probably going to defend it before they don't defend it.
I don't know if they're owned. I've never heard of media like Fox News or CNN being owned by Israel.
You need to look at the owners of those stations, and you'll see that they're dual citizenship.
Well, they may be, but that doesn't mean that they're necessarily owned by Israel. I appreciate the call, Scott. We're almost at a break here, but I would strongly disagree with the fact that they actually defend Israel's movement and Israel's agenda, because just listen to the media when they attack Israel left and right, when they paraded the fact that the United Nations votes against the United States and Israel on just about any type of resolution in the United Nations or any issue that comes up internationally. They despise Israel. Any progressive, any left-winger, they hate Israel, which is why conservatives get attacked so much because, why do you support that nation over there like Israel? Why do we have to be allies with them? They're not helping us in any way, shape, or form. We hear that nonstop. I'd second guess that one. I question that sentiment of the media being owned by Israel and wanting to support Israeli agenda, because that's not the case that I've heard in any way, shape, or form. Bottom of the hour news coming up. Lots more to get to. Your thoughts and calls as well. This is the Voice of Reason.
Doesn't tolerate name calling.
You could put half of Trump supporters into what I call the basket of deplorables.
But if you want to try, call the show at 316-721-8255 right now. This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
What's happening? It's a Thursday. Great to have you along today. Let's start off the morning the right way because that's just what we like to do. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. You can email me, Andy at KQAMradio.com. You can shoot me a message on the Twitter. I actually haven't been on there in a few days. Twitter.com. I am at Hoosier Reason. If you want to send me a message on there, you're more than welcome to do so. I am getting on now. It's what frustrates me is every time I get on Twitter, the first thing that pops up is a comment from Bernie Sanders. Every time, no matter what. And I follow him just to try and understand what the loony left is trying to talk about. But I get on there, and the first thing right off the bat, corporations are evil, and we need to stop them getting so much money. Every time. And it gets old. So after a while, I just stopped getting on Facebook because I don't know why, but that seems to be the most popular thing that pops up on my Twitter every time I get on for the very first time. 316-721-8255. There was some good news that happened yesterday. Everybody seemed to talk about it yesterday. And I want to open up the lines to you to get your thoughts on the fact of Speaker of the House Paul Ryan announcing that he will not be running for re-election, not only for the congressional seat, but for the House or anything. He's done. He's out. He wants to be done. He wants to take care of his family. And I say, good riddance. Good riddance. I have been not a fan of Paul Ryan in any way, shape, or form. He has been more of the establishment, left-leaning, moderate Republican that's tried to play nice and get all look. Now, look, he may be a great guy. He may be a nice guy. Some of the comments have been that when they walk into a room with Paul Ryan, some of the things they think of is the smell of like deer urine because he likes to be a big hunter and avid hunter. Look, he's from Wisconsin, and he could be a great individual, great personal individual. That's fine. But he is, in my opinion, not been the greatest politician. He's not been the most staunch conservative. He was not the best running mate when it came to Mitt Romney. He tried to play off the conservative side. He got elected as a Tea Partier. The Tea Party backed him to get him into office. He started running as the VP with Mitt Romney in the 2012 election, kind of as the Tea Party conservative brand to bring Mitt Romney a little bit farther to the right. And then as soon as that election was done, then he just went crazy, and he ended up being an establishment rhino, moderate Republican. And I don't understand what happened. And there's some weirdness that happens with some of the Wisconsin politics as Paul Ryan started off as a conservative, kind of went towards the moderate center. Scott Walker, governor up there, solid conservative. The last couple comments that he made over the last few weeks was, well, now we need to start listening to the other side and start sliding things a little bit more to the moderate side. And I don't understand. I don't know if they get scared. I don't know if they get nervous. I know that we're concerned about this quote-unquote blue wave, and that's what's happening, but your thoughts on the motive of Paul Ryan wanting to leave office. Now, he said that it was very clear that he did not want the speaker position, which I believe. I think that he did not want to get that position. I think that it was kind of rammed through him, and I think we could have done better options of people that actually wanted it, but it was endorsed by John Boehner, the former Speaker of the House, who was about as left-wing as you could get with John McCain. He was a ridiculous individual that ended up endorsing him. John McCain ended up endorsing him, and the establishment at that time ended up rallying behind Paul Ryan and putting him in that position. And his comment was, and I still believe this, that he didn't want it, and he just said, if I can unite the party, then that's what I'll do. If I can unite us and I can work together, we can try and do the best that we can, then I'll accept it. And I believe that was his intention, and he had good intentions. And I don't think he was necessarily wanting that position, but he took it. He didn't do the best job, in my humble opinion, but I will give him credit for trying. Now he's out, and the question is, number one, do you think it has an effect on the midterm elections this fall? Do you think that seat is going to swing the other direction? We just had a special election in the state of Wisconsin for the state Supreme Court up there, and they ended up choosing a very, very far left-wing liberal judge to fill the vacant seat in the Supreme Court for Wisconsin. And it was really the argument between the staunch liberal and the staunch conservative that was running for that seat, and the liberal ended up winning. So they're concerned up in Wisconsin when it came to a blue wave. Texas did not see the blue wave. Pennsylvania has not seen the blue wave. Virginia has not seen a blue wave, but they're talking about it in mass when it comes to this election this fall. Will we see a blue wave in Kansas? Will we see one in Oklahoma? Oklahoma is kind of a unique state just because of the fact that, as you know, they're in financial turmoil. They're in a special session along with a regular session. We had the teacher walkout that's still going on for over the week and a half now. And the question is, what's going to happen? It's been predominantly run by Republicans, and now the Democrats feel that maybe Oklahoma has opportunity to start swinging to the blue, swinging to the left. Will we start seeing a change in that sense? I don't know. Will Kansas, will James Thompson be able to de-seat someone like Ron Estes in the 4th congressional seat with the firebrand Bernie Sanders-ite liberal progressive fringe blue Democrats? Will that happen? I don't think so, but will it? Will we see a change in the governorship? Every term or every 2 terms, I guess, once it actually expires, we see a change and the pendulum swings one side to the other. Will we see that change this year? Paul Ryan did a lot of things and a lot of not so good things. I have a very hard time saying that Paul Ryan did some really good things, but he did some not so good things and he did some things where we can kind of understand where he was coming from. But yeah, and I think it was because of that position that he didn't necessarily want to be there. And his comment was the fact that he wants to spend more time with his family, that he doesn't want to be a weekend dad, and that he wants to start focusing on some other projects in his life that he's done. He's been there. He's been there for a long time, and he's ready to just move on, which I understand, and good for him for that sense. Will that shake up the Republicans? Will we have an opportunity to actually put up a solid conservative? My first response is good riddance. Good riddance. If you don't want to be there, we don't want someone to be forced to be there when they don't want to because they're not going to be as productive, they're not going to be as efficient, and they're not going to do a good enough job of what we would like to see because their heart's really not in it. So if you don't want to be there, go. That's fine. I have no problem with that in any way, shape, or form. Does that throw in some instability in the Republican Party? I don't think so. Because I'm one of those, and maybe this is just me, but I don't like being dependent on a whole lot of people. I really don't like being dependent on a whole lot of people. I understand that politics is kind of a team group effort, especially when it comes to the political parties, and the party needs to be sound. The party needs to be clear-minded. The party needs to be stable, and then you work with the party in order to get elected and to be able to advance some type of political agenda, one way, shape, or form. I understand that that's what you have to do, but I'm one that I don't like to depend on a whole lot of people. If I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it myself because I know it'll get done right. And that's the way I was taught. That's the way my family's always been. Many members of my family, on both sides, really, on my side and my wife's side. And that's just kind of how we do it. That if you want to do it, you're going to do it yourself because you don't trust anyone else to do it properly. So if I'm running for office, then I would just want to kind of do it myself and not depend on a whole lot of people. Obviously, you kind of need to for financial backing, for the support of people to make sure to vote for you and so on and so forth. But to actually do on the campaign trail and to make sure that you get your message out and what, I'm kind of an independent kind of guy like that. Just leave me alone and let me do my thing. If you are running as a whole and as a party on the national front, it needs to be a stable party. Well, Paul Ryan throw the wrench in that system when it comes to the stability of the Republican Party for the midterm elections. Because now the Republican Party not only has to worry about that seat in Wisconsin that may be a swing state, which I don't think it would be, but they're concerned about it. But now they have to look for a Speaker of the House. They have to look for a new leadership. And which caucus within the Republican Party is going to have enough influence at this time to do that if they go towards more of the conservative side? And I get someone like McCarthy to go in there and to be the new Speaker of the House. Is that going to be too extreme for many of the seats in this midterm election to, which I don't think so, but this is what their thought process is. Not me talking here, this is them talking. Is this going to be too extreme for the election in the midterm to say, well, it swung too far to the right, we need to have a little balance, and we need to actually equal it and stabilize it out a little bit. We need some more moderates or maybe some more Democrats are going to win to fight against the extremism of McCarthy. I don't see that the case, but they would consider that. Or if we go towards more the moderate side, the way that we've done so far, every time that we have a major election and the Republicans are concerned, let's widen the Republican umbrella. Let's soften our tone a little bit. Let's try and play nice with everyone. Let's be all happy, hunky-dory, and let's put in a moderate in there that's going to fight against President Donald Trump in many cases, and then we can try and stabilize the Republicans and hopefully be able to get some more Republicans elected in the next election. But we have an omnibus bill that just increased our spending by $1.3 trillion. We have The appropriations process that's starting now, that's kind of important, that Congress, once they get back up there, kind of needs to look at and address and start working on, that we're going to get some details on very soon. We have the repeal of Obamacare that we need to finalize and finish off. We have a lot of issues that we need to address at the federal level by shaking up the leadership. I see it as a potential good thing because we can have a new face, a new agenda, a new goal, a new light at the end of the tunnel to where we can start focusing on the right things, and we can work with President Trump. We can get the right bills, and maybe we can have a leader in the House that'll say, you know what? We're conservatives. We're Republicans. We're not going to support big taxes. We're not going to support increase in spending. We're not going to support a bill that continues to fund Planned Parenthood. We're not going to continue a bill that supports Obamacare and funds Obamacare some more. We're not going to do it anymore. We're going to change this up. And if you get a bill on the floor that has that, then I will not try and rally. I will not try and push my side of the aisle. I will not try and push Republicans to support that bill. I will use my power as Speaker of the House to make sure what gets on the floor is actually substantial. And that's what we need to have. Paul Ryan did not do that. He tried. He talked tough, but a lot of times he just did not do that. So I say farewell, have fun, enjoy the family, good riddance. We can find somebody better. I'm always the eternal optimist. I know many people are very worried about this. You heard talk show hosts talking about it all day yesterday, but I'm not concerned. It's going to be okay. Now, the Washington Examiner talked about the blue wave again because the media is all panicky and wanting to make you be either scared or be optimistic as a Democrat about the new blue wave happening. And according to the Washington Examiner, Washington Secrets, a millennial poll, historic youth wave coming in 2018. Dems outnumber GOP 2-1. 2-1, you say? So we should be very, very concerned about this blue wave. The Democrats and the young generation, the millennials, that are predominantly on the left side of the aisle, according to them. The millennials that want their safe spaces, their freedom of speech censored somewhat so that way we don't offend anyone. And the ones that are very liberal on social issues, they're the ones that are going to come out, outnumber GOP members 2-1, and they're going to elect Democrats across the board. The blue wave happening. I don't see it. Bring it on. We'll talk about that when we come back. Your thoughts and calls as well. This is The Voice of Reason.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Welcome back into The Voice of Reason, wrapping up hour number 1 already. Goes by way too fast. Appreciate you hanging out with us today. No matter where you're at, radio, TV, Facebook Live, we love having you aboard. And happy Thursday. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. Listener on Facebook Live, good riddance, Paul Ryan. Would have respected him much more if he were honest about why he is leaving. Look, I don't know why he's leaving. Maybe it is legitimately about the fact that he just wants to be home. I know that after he made his announcement, his wife was very happy that apparently she heard the news while she was at the convenience store, the grocery store or something, and got really excited about that. So maybe it really, truly, honestly is just the fact that he wants to be home and he's done. But the fact is that he's left us a ruin of some really, really bad things, and he needs to be accountable for that. He needs to admit that. He said that he accomplished what he wanted to accomplish, which must have been a lot higher spending, compromising conservative values. When he first got elected, trying to win over the conservatives, saying he would fight for conservative values, and then completely turning his back on them, he needs to admit that he hasn't been the strongest leader, and maybe that's why he's stepping down. Maybe he doesn't want to be in that battle that's going on between the Democrats, many of the Republicans, and trying to block and trying to go after President Donald Trump. Maybe he just doesn't want to deal with that. I don't really care why he's leaving, and I agree with you, Craig. I don't really care why he's leaving. I think that he needs to admit, though, what he's done wasn't necessarily the best, and that he's leaving because he can't handle it any longer. He can't handle the conservatives yelling and screaming from the House floor saying, wait a second, we'd like more conservative things, like not more spending, and then trying to bat off the Democrats that are saying we need more spending, let's do more, let's do more, let's do more, and him saying, let's find the happy medium here. No, you're a Republican. Do the Republican thing. No Democrats, you're not going to get your way. If you wanted to get your way, then you should elect more House Democrats in order to get the majority and get Nancy Pelosi to come back as Speaker of the House. And God forbid that ever happen. But right now, the Republicans are in majority. The Republicans are going to do Republican things, and the Democrats, we're not going to try and compromise with you. If you want to try and advocate for your agenda, then you need to come to the table with something that actually benefits us a little bit more than you. We're not playing this game any longer. Paul Ryan never did that. So good riddance to him, and we can be way better off as a Republican Party once we start cleaning the house. And another Facebook Live message, you're right. Mitch McConnell, you're next. We're done with Mitch McConnell. We're done with the leadership of the establishment, of the moderate Republicans, of the ones trying to play nice, of the ones looking for the Republican special interests that are big government interests just as much as Democrats are. We're tired of it. We want a change, which is why we elected Donald Trump to shake up the system. Now let's start shaking up Congress. Let's vote in some solid conservatives. Let's get them to be not only in Congress, either in the Senate or in the House, but in leadership positions. And then we start actually building up the wall and say, Democrats, you're not going to get your way anymore until you're in the majority. And then you can do whatever the heck you want to while we try and obstruct you. But we're not going to fulfill your agenda with us in power. It ain't going to happen any longer. Your thoughts on this? 316-721-8255. Let's go to line number 2. Good morning. What's your name?
Hi, this is Helen.
Good morning, Helen. How are you?
I'm doing just great.
Good.
Well, I say likewise. Good riddance to Paul Ryan, the Rhino.
It's really sad. I never heard anybody yesterday say that on many of the national shows. Everybody was like, oh, this could actually be bad for the Republicans because he's doing it at a really bad time during the election, and we may not like some of his policies, but we really need him in there. No, if he doesn't have his heart in it, he's not going to fight the fights we need him to fight. So good riddance. See you later, and let's get somebody new.
And I also wanted to comment on that caller earlier, Scott. You know, he's trying to blame Israel for all of this stuff that's going on.
Okay.
He obviously is biblically illiterate. The Lord God has a whole lot more control over what things are going on in this world than he gives God credit for. And in Zechariah 14, he says, verse 12, it says, and this shall be the plague wherewith the Lord will smite all of the people that have fought against Jerusalem, Israel, Judea. Their flesh shall consume away while they stand upon their feet, and their eyes shall consume away in their holes, and their tongue shall consume away in their mouth. It's God bringing about this battle, this final battle.
Well, and it's going to be coming pretty quickly. And Helen, I appreciate we're out of time here, but now look, on Scott's defense, I mean, he was saying that Israel was kind of running things a little bit, which maybe they are to some degree, not the media-wise, but maybe the control on what's happening over in the Middle East. But you're right. I mean, that's why as conservatives, as religious individuals, as Christians, as whatever, we stand with Israel because we understand the importance of not only the politics over there, but of the religious side of that as well. Lots more coming up. Stay here.
It's time for spring sports for Friends University Athletics with high expectations once again for all the Falcons teams. The women's golf team will be competing in their inaugural season, while the tennis teams look to continue their improvement. Head coach Adam Nesis of baseball and Tony Segovia of softball are closing in on career wins number 400, while the softball team tries for its third straight conference title as well.
For more information on Friends University, give them a call at 316-295-5000 or stop by online at friends.edu.
It's time for Reason.
The government is nothing more in this situation than the big bad wolf in the cloak of a sheep, trying to look like the innocent little grandmother, trying to look like the innocent little Red Riding Hood when she knocks on the door the first time to intrude into the house to eat the grandmother. The government is the dangerous one in this situation, and we're allowing them to investigate Facebook for things that the private market can solve itself in the private sector.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
That's what I'm talking about. Welcome into the Voice of Reason, hour number 2 of the Voice of Reason, broadcasting live out of the heart of the nation here in Wichita, Kansas. Right here on the Big Talker, 1480 on the AM side, 102.5 on the FM side, KQAM. Simulcasting on KGPT TV, channel 2610. Welcome aboard. What's happening? Happy Thursday morning. It is the pre-Friday celebration. What a lot of fun we're having today already. Lots to get to. It's a heck of a show today, heck and a half, really. Coming up in hour number 3, State Senator Ty Masterson going to be in studio. Looking forward to chatting with him. We always love chatting with him. We'll talk about the legislative session. We'll talk about the upcoming debates. We'll talk about the Truth Caucus. We have a lot to get to with him. So glad he's going to be able to be in studio with us for a while. Your thoughts, though, this hour. It's open line. See you this hour. 316-721-8255. 316-721-TALK. The Facebook Live feed is open as well. Facebook.com/1480KQAM. Go on there. Yesterday, I believe that it was part of the Zuckerberg lack of censorship now that we're actually beginning to open things up and be transparent a little bit. I think that Facebook's trying to play nice for a little bit, and we have an opportunity to utilize that. Go onto the Facebook Live feed, like it, share it, leave a comment. Let's start some dialogue on there. Let's get some discussion going. It's a lot of fun. Well, yesterday we doubled the number of hits that we usually get on an average daily basis. I mean, it spikes for some days, goes down some other days, but yesterday it really was double what we usually get on a day-by-day basis. So I think it was actually able to reach more people with the algorithm now that Facebook's actually not trying to censor and silence conservative organizations. So let's get on there. Let's share it. Let's like it. Let's blow it up. Let's have a little fun with it. Get some more people, because this is the fastest growing program in the entire Mid-America Reason. I am, by the way, on Twitter as well, at Hoosier Reason, or you can email me, Andy at KQAMradio.com. I have to give some kudos to Governor Gov Colyer, which I am a fan. I do enjoy a lot of what he does. I'm not supportive of what he wants to do with signing the educational bill, but he's done some really good things so far. After the transition from Governor Sam Brownback to Governor Gov Colyer, we didn't know what to get. It was kind of a open air. What would we expect from him? What would we see? Governor Brownback was talking very highly of him, so we expected somewhat of the conservative agenda, and we've seen a lot of that. We have seen a lot of that. I don't like the fact that we're talking about increasing educational funding, but that's another discussion for another day. But I got to give credit to him, and I want to get your thoughts on this of public shaming. Now, it's not exactly what you're thinking of when you think of public shaming, but maybe it should be. Public shaming, look, we have different ways to hold society accountable. We want to hold ourselves to a high standard. We don't want to just say, whatever, I can do whatever I want to, and you can't tell me what to do. And we know a lot of people that try and act that way on social media because they act really tough, and even the crazy ones that are in public, in society, to where they don't really care in any way, shape, or form of what they dress, what they look like. They don't care about how they act. They don't care about showing respect to anybody, that the world revolves around them, and who really cares what else anybody else has to say about it. And that goes for not only their appearance in public, but it goes to their appearance in their home. That goes to how they're, there's a lot of individuals today that just don't hold themselves to a standard because they don't feel like they have to. They don't care. They've lost all the give a crap in the world, and they don't really care what anybody thinks of them, what they do. And it's sad. Now, you have to have that to some degree because you can't hold yourself to what everybody says, or else you're going to be going around trying to appease everybody, and that never works out very well either. But you have to hold yourself to some type of standard. You ever see this? And I admit I do this on occasion too. And they give me crap for it, I know. But you go to the grocery store and you see people walking around in their pajamas. I've done that a couple of times. It's not necessarily the best thing to do, but I do that once in a while. But at least it's somewhat respectable. It's not like you ever see those videos or the pictures that you see on social media sometimes of the people in Walmart and the crazy individuals that just don't really care in Walmart in any way, shape, or form. But the public shaming sometimes is a way to hold people accountable for certain levels of what we're supposed to be at as a society. Governor Gov Colyer just did that at the state level, and I give him major props and kudos for doing this. And here's the story according to Cake TV. Kansas Department of Children and Families website features child support evaders. Kansas Governor Gov Colyer has announced a new initiative to increase child support collections for Kansas families and children. On Thursday, Governor Colyer, along with Kansas Department of DCF Secretary, unveiled the Child Support Evaders webpage, and it features nearly a dozen individuals who owe back child support in excess of $5,000. Well done. Well done. I am a huge supporter of something like this. Let's shame them. If you're not going to pay for your children, if you're not going to pay for your child support, which I don't like the fact that we have to do child support anyways because that just leads to broken family stuff, and I don't like going down that road. But if we're going to do it, and you want to be irresponsible with your life, and you don't want to act like an adult, you don't want to take on responsibilities, you don't want to take care of the children that you actually have after you split and and you don't pay your child support, let's publicly shame you. Let's put your picture out there. Let's put your profile out there. Let's put you on the website and let everybody in the world know that if they go there, they can see you on there, and then when they see you in public, you can be publicly shamed. Is that too extreme? Is that too much, or is it what we need to do to say, you know what, if you're going to actually have a kid, then you need to take responsibility of that. And a lot of people don't like to do that. We mentioned many times before on this show that the society has really lost personal responsibility. They just don't. I mean, we talk about those individuals that just don't care. I don't care what you think about me. I live my own little world, and you can't tell me what to do. I'm not going to listen to you. I'm going to live my own life, and you can't tell me how to do anything in any way, shape, or form at all because I'm stubborn like that, and I just don't give a crap. It's sad that people live that way. You have to have that kind of flavor to some degree so that way you don't just take everything, any type of criticism, to heart, but at the same time, you got to hold yourself to a standard and personal responsibility. That goes into maybe the abortion issue. Now, you know what? We don't want responsibility of that. Let's just go get rid of it. Okay, we want a choice. So you had the choice before you made the action. What about guns? When you purchase a gun, we had the personal responsibility of maintaining the firearm, of securing the firearm, of training with the firearm, of learning how the firearm works, storing the firearm properly. There's a lot of responsibility that comes with that. And as we talk about in society of maybe raising the age to 21 to purchase the firearms, for example, I don't want to go down the gun debate right now, but for example, if we're talking about that, then we're just prolonging children to have responsibilities. Do you remember as a kid when you started getting old enough, you started getting 8, 9, 10 years old, maybe even younger, that as you got older, you wanted to play and play and play and have fun and go have fun with your friends and go do things and play video games maybe or go outside and play. And your parents said, oh, wait a second, you're starting to get older. It's time for you to take on some responsibility. Or maybe you've done this as a parent. It's time for you to take on some responsibility before you're allowed to go play, before you're allowed to go play with your friends or go outside and play or go run around and play video games or whatever. You have to vacuum the floors. You have to wash the dishes. You have to take the trash out. You have to do something. It's the personal responsibility. And if you don't, then you're not going to get to go do the fun things. And we've lost a lot of that. We've lost that person. So now we have a generation growing up to where they don't feel like they have to do that responsibility. They like being an adult and going out and partying, but they don't like the responsibility of what goes along with that. And we need to get that back. And I think a lot of that falls into the fact that there are many individuals who like to go out and have fun and have a kid, and then they choose to keep the kid, and they split up for whatever reason, or maybe they weren't together in the first place and it just kind of happened. And then the child support thing comes along and they say, ain't going to pay for it because we don't have that responsibility. So let's publicly shame them. What else should we do this way? What else could we have? I know that we have kind of the same thing when it comes to sexual predators in the area. You can find those and you can know who did those in the area. The blue dots or whatever, and you can find them in your community. There's ways that you can find these, but what other type of categories should we potentially be thinking about, ways that we can call out and expose individuals for not taking responsibility for their actions in their life? And maybe, just maybe, that can help clean some of this up. Now, this one, of course, if you're missing it by a couple $100 and you missed a payment and you're struggling for work or something, then obviously I don't see them being on the website for this DCF when it comes to child support. But if this says if you're missing more than $5,000 in child support, they're going to put you on this website. And it's really a public shame to be on the wall of shame. Should we start doing this more when it comes to government agencies? Should we start doing this as a community? Should we start finding ways to hold our community members accountable, responsible, and to a certain standard so that way we as a society have a bit of a standard for ourselves? Or should we continue to say, you know what, I don't care whatever you say. I'm going to do whatever I want to, no matter how shameful it may look in society. It doesn't matter to me because I don't feel ashamed, so therefore I'm going to be proud of myself, and heck with all you guys that try and judge me. I don't really care, and you just sink deeper into your hole. I don't want that, and some of these people may be ingrained in that sense, but let's start holding ourselves to a standard, and maybe we can start solving some of these issues that we're seeing in society today. Your thoughts on this? 316-721-8255. Let's go to the phones here, shall we? Good morning. What's your name? Oh, I guess we just lost him. All right, I'd love to hear from you. Your thoughts on this. 316-721-8255. 18 minutes past the hour. We'll take a break. We'll come back with your phone calls. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier on the Big Talker, KQAM.
23 minutes past the hour. Welcome back into The Voice of Reason. Great to have you along today on a Thursday. The pre-Friday celebration rolling right along, baby. Let's get her going. Let's carpe diem all over this place. Make it a good one. What do you say? End the week, and we started the week strong. Let's end the week strong. Then you can have some fun. We work hard to party hard. That is the circle of life, baby. 316-721-8255. I'm sensing some positive news today. I like it. Talk radio sometimes is very down and depressing, and we talk about all the negativity happening in the world, and we complain, and the monologue's usually about venting and frustrated about things. And I like talking about positive, happy-go-lucky things. Paul Ryan is out. Paul Ryan is leaving. The Republicans, for whatever reason, all panicky about this. Oh, no. Oh, mon Dieu. But we're moving an establishment Republican out. Let's get a conservative in there. Okay. Let's not complain about it. Oh, we're so scared we're shaking up the party during an election year. No, you know what? If you're not in it, if your heart's not in it, let's move you on out and let's get somebody else in that can actually do the job, that wants to do the job and do it appropriately. We see Governor Gov Colyer that is wanting to create this website, and it's up now, so that way you can go on and you can see people that are not wanting to pay their child support. Let's publicly shame them a little bit. Let's try and put some pressure on them to actually do the right thing, because, you know, if they're not paying, if they have $5,000 in outstanding balances for child support, what does that do for the family? What does that do for the children? And we're all about the children, are we not? So, you know what? I don't see anybody wanting to say, oh, that's a bad idea. Let's do it, baby. Let's do it for more items as well, other things as well, so that way we can actually hold our community accountable. These are both, in my eyes, good pieces of news, good things that are happening in our community. Then we see the Topeka Capital Journal, Kansas AG, the Attorney General, files a lawsuit against Chris Kobach to drop out of state candidates for governor's race. First off, I love the wording on these things. If you notice, if you just read the headline, it almost sounds like the AG wanted to file a lawsuit against Chris Kobach to drop out of the governor's race. That's not the case. That's not what's happening here. But Kansas Attorney General, this is from the Topeka Capital Journal, by the way, so shocker. They actually try and catch you up on there to read that and say, oh, wait, what? What about Chris Kobach dropping out of the race? Yeah. Kansas Attorney General filed a lawsuit against the Secretary of State on Tuesday to block people who reside outside of Kansas from being on the ballot on serving as governor. I just read a poll yesterday on the most recognized names and the most popular names, likability when it comes to, for the candidates. Chris Kobach is number one right now with 85% of individuals in the state of Kansas, according to this poll that came out of Fort Hays State University on the recognition of the name in the state for the candidates. Then we saw the likability, and actually Laura Kelly, who was not even in the list of recognized individuals, was the most likable when it comes to the governor's polls, the governor's race on both sides of the aisle. Greg Orman, by the way, is number two with the most recognition as an independent candidate. I did not find a single person on that recognized candidate list that was out of state. I didn't find any. I didn't see any. It was Chris Kobach. It was Greg Orman. It was even Wayne Cartman, even though he's not on there right now. It's Jim Barnett. It's Governor Gov Colyer. It was even down to Ethan Randall, is the high school student that was a Republican that ended up going Libertarian. He's really the only high school student that's made any traction on anything, and he's because of probably the fact that he left the Republican and went to the Libertarian side. But that's it. I didn't find anybody that was outside of the state. The question I have is, we need to address this, and I completely agree. We have a state legislature, Blake Carpenter, proposed a bill in the House saying that we should have an age limit and we should have non-out-of-staters being able to apply and qualify and try and run for the governorship for the state of Kansas. Have we ever had a governor in the state of Kansas that has not been a Kansas resident? Have we had any? I don't think we have. I mean, I've only been here for, 3-4 years now, but I have not seen or known or heard of anybody that's actually won the governorship from being out of state. Is there a need to sue the Secretary of State right now? Now, I understand the premise on it. I agree that we need to address this, whether we address it this election with this year coming up in November or we do it for the next term. But do we need to worry about it through a lawsuit right now to make sure that nobody gets on the ballot that's from out of state? The concern is that if we have individuals on the ballot from out of state, then that can draw votes away. People aren't very aware that they're not living in or residing in the state of Kansas, and then we have a big issue and they're stealing some of the votes away. I don't see that being the case. We have a huge election coming up with a lot of really solid candidates and some really big names with the candidates right now on both sides of the aisle. Right now we have Governor Gov Colyer, we have Secretary of State Chris Kobach, we have Jim Barnett and Ken Seltzer, and a lot of them are really pushing hard. One of them will get the nomination. It's not going to be some outsider. Greg Orman is bringing in a huge name recognition when it comes to the independent race, along with, if you don't recognize, we have 3 other independent candidates running as well. We have 2 or 3 libertarian candidates. Ethan Randall is being really the one that we know about. On the Democrat side, for the first time in 2 decades, we have a huge Democratic race that's going to be going on for the primary with Laura Kelly and with Jim Ward. 2 really big names in the state legislature. Surprisingly, neither one of them being on the recognized list for very high up on there, but yet they're going to be really big names. Carl Brewer was actually the only Democrat that was on the recognition list on that poll from Fort Hays State University. I don't know of anybody that's from out of state that's actually getting any popularity in the state of Kansas. I understand the premise, but why are we filing a suit against the Secretary of State for this now? Is it to cause an issue? Is it to block up the courts? Is it to maybe go after Chris Kobach a little bit, the fact that he's been in office? Because it's intended for him. Secretary of State Chris Kobach, who is a Republican candidate for the gubernatorial nomination, has allowed non-residents to fill out paperwork to be candidates. So they're blaming him. This is according to, again, the Capital Journal. They're blaming him. They're blaming the office for allowing it. They allow candidates from outside of the state. Number one, do you think it's really going to help Chris Kobach if more people are on the ballot like that? It's only going to take votes away if they're concerned about something like that. Number two, has this not been an issue for a really, really long time that's never been on the books, that prior Secretary of States haven't addressed, that prior governors haven't addressed, that prior legislatures haven't addressed, but yet now we need to cause an issue about it. We need to make this big hoopla, and now we need to be concerned about it. I don't understand why this is a big issue now for the governorship. For the governorship. We already have a legislative issue or a legislative bill that's been presented. It hasn't really gone anywhere yet. It may go through by the end of the session, that we can't address this. But why make a big hoopla about it now? Maybe I'm missing something here. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Bottom of the hour news coming up. Got some calls on the line. Stay in there. We'll get to you as soon as we come back after this break. This is The Voice of Reason on KQAM. Stay here.
Taking talk radio to the next level. The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
That's what we do here. Welcome back in. Great to have you along today on a Thursday morning. 316-721-8255. Coming up in about a half an hour from now, State Senator Ty Masterson going to join us in studio. Looking forward to chatting with him on all the things happening up in Topeka so far this session. Let's go to the phones. What do you say? 316-721-8255. Good morning. What's your name? Oh, I guess we lost him. Give me a call back. I'd love to hear from you. 316-721-8255. By the way, I want to shift gears just for a second here. I don't know if you saw this story. We now can feel really, really comfortable with our teachers being able to protect our children. I share this on Facebook, had some great comments on there. I'm sure you can feel really, really comfortable now with the teachers being able to protect you if there is an active shooter situation. And this happened in Mill Creek Township in Pennsylvania since teachers' unions in Mill Creek Township School District didn't favor arming teachers with guns. The district spent $1,800 for 600 16-inch bats to arm their instructors against active shooters. Now, I don't know if you've seen these little tiny bats that are they're about this long. Well, if you're watching the TV or Facebook Live, they're about, I don't know, the length of maybe someone's wrist to forearm or wrist to elbow. And they're really tiny, they're really thin, and they're usually used for fun or for training even. Baseball players, we used to use those as training. You'd use it as one hand, and then you'd hit a wiffle ball with them. And you'd use that for training, for the quickness and for the speed and for the accuracy, for a tiny little bat and a tiny little ball, and you'd be able to hit the tiny little wiffle balls. And we'd use those for training, but it's a little 16-inch baseball bat. Take that, you big meat man! When someone walks in as an active shooter. So they walk in with an AR-15 or with a shotgun or with a handgun to shoot somebody. You're definitely going to have time to be able to pull out your baseball bat, your tiny little 16-inch baseball bat that looks like a tiny little, like half of the size of a baton, and run over to the active shooter and beat them over the head with it until they stop and they say, oh, okay, I'll stop. You can feel really, really safe now with as a parent and as a student and even as a teacher of the fact that you can have a tiny little 16-inch baseball bat. About 500 teachers were handed the bats at an in-service training or active shooter situation for Monday, and the policy of the school had been revised to allow fighting back with the bats, although the teachers are not expected to actually have to do that, quote-unquote. Quote, the bats are more symbolic than anything. However, we do want to have one consistent tool to have as somebody's disposal in a classroom in the event that they have to fight. It's not about just hiding and waiting. There are options, and one of those is to fight. So you can't allow them to have a handgun to fight back, because that would be the reasonable thing, to take a tiny little baseball bat to a gunfight. You can't give them a gun to fight back and defend themselves, because that is important for the teachers to be able to fight back. So here's a little tiny baseball bat. It's a symbolic gesture for you to fight when a shooter comes into your classroom. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the absolute lunacy and stupidity of society today. It's time for our News with Rick. Would you feel comfortable with that? Nice little little tiny. Have you seen those, the little 16-inch baseball bats? They're about the size of maybe someone, like the thickness of someone's finger, and it's about 16 inches. And yeah, take that, you big mean man.
Andy, what kind of ball was that you said?
A wiffle ball.
A what ball?
A wiffle ball. You've never heard of this? You know, the tiny little white balls with the holes in it? Looks like Swiss cheese.
Say it one more time, Andy.
It is a wiffle ball. I don't understand what's so funny about this.
Oh, my goodness. You just go with that, big guy.
It is. What would you call them?
It's a wiffle ball.
It's a wiffle ball.
Wiffle. With an I, not with a It's wiffle ball.
It is a wiffle ball.
All right, in the news this morning, Wichita police arrested a man for child abuse and murder this week. Police say a man and woman brought the 6-month-old boy to the hospital because the child had stopped breathing. The child died shortly thereafter. The baby's father told police he had been roughhousing and shadowboxing with the child when the child stopped breathing. It was found the child had severe internal injuries. Doral Glynn booked into the Sedgwick County Jail Tuesday night on charges of child abuse and first-degree murder. Police say a man died after crashing his motorcycle into a forklift loader in West Wichita yesterday morning. That accident happening in the 4500 block of West Irving near Kellogg and I-235. Police say the motorcycle was attempting to pass the loader as the loader was turning into a private drive when the motorcycle rider collided with the forks on the implement. The man on the motorcycle taken to an area hospital where he later died from his injuries. And a motorcycle police officer suffered serious injuries in an accident yesterday afternoon on East Kellogg that happened around 2 o'clock near Grove. The female 20-year veteran of the force and an experienced motorcycle rider clipped a pickup truck and was hospitalized after the accident. Kellogg shut down for a period of time while responders worked that scene. And the Newton bank robbery that happened earlier this week at the First Bank of Newton. Well, it turns out the suspect in that robbery has been identified, and he's also wanted in Oklahoma on previous bank robbery charges. The man's been identified as Martin Paris, and he's on federal probation in Oklahoma. Paris was last known to be in the Oklahoma City area as of Tuesday night. Anyone with information on his whereabouts should contact law enforcement. And maybe if you see him, you can throw a waffle ball at him.
It's a wiffle ball.
And stop
it is
him.
a wiffle ball. Okay, is it roof or roof? Because it is a roof.
I think that is a geographical colloquial, and it just determines what part of the country you're in.
Okay,
is it a washer or warsher?
It is a... Oh, that's a good question. A washer? I guess I've heard that before. A soda or a pop? A soda pop?
But a wiffle ball
It is a wiffle ball.
a wiffle ball.
It is a wiffle ball.
Everywhere.
Now, I'm hoping this story that I found was according to Uncle Sam's misguidedchildren.com, kind of an obscure blog there. So I'm hoping this is an actual joke.
Well, I would assume it's
I
probably
would assume it is.
an onion type thing.
But come on, we put...
It's hard to disseminate the real news from the fake news.
But well,
anymore.
and I'm not concerned about the fake news here. I mean, come on, we saw the people talking about putting buckets of rocks in the classroom.
Yes, stone
so
them.
if we
that goes back a few days.
Yeah, just a little bit there. Hey, take that, you make me. Here's a little pebble for you. So if we're concerned about putting buckets of rocks in there, I really would not be surprised if they wanted to put little baseball bats in there. Now, I will say the shooting that I went through in my high school, one of my teachers did grab, he had a regular sized wooden baseball bat in his classroom, and he did grab that. So, I mean, if you have anything, I guess you can feel a little bit more protected, but give me a break.
I think the coolest thing I've seen, I mean, if you have to have a cool thing in response to all this, was on social media. And it was a steel cable, maybe a 10-inch steel cable with a loop at the end of it, and it was anchored into the cement wall of the door frame. And in the event of an active shooter, the teacher just goes and hooks the loop of that steel cable onto the door, ergo stopping said perpetrator from entering the classroom.
And I guarantee
I don't know.
And I guarantee that it probably wouldn't have needed to cost multiple millions of dollars as many states are trying to invest in school safety now.
I wouldn't think so. I think you could go up to Pride Ag Ace Hardware in Mays, Kansas and get everything you need to do that.
And get everything you need for probably like $5.
Yep.
Crazy how that works. Rick with the news.
And that's the news.
There it is, 316-721-8255. Let's go to the phones, get your reaction on that. Now, I'm guessing because of how lunacy and crazy this actually sounds, I'm guessing that this is a joke story. I'm hoping and I'm praying that this is a joke story. Mill Creek Township School Superintendent William Hall, according to the Erie Times News, is the one where this quote actually came from. I'm hoping this is a joke story, because if this is real, then this shows how far, how extreme, how nutso we have come to say we want to protect our children because we understand stickers don't do anything, but we're going to not go as far as actually allowing them to protect them the legit way with actually having a firearm, to the point to where we're putting buckets of rocks in classrooms and we're carrying tiny little 16-inch baseball bats. Your thoughts on this? Let's go to the phone, shall we? Good morning. What's your name? Hello.
This is Doug.
Doug, what's going on?
Hey, so on the baseball bat thing.
Yes.
We should be, instead of Louisville Slugger, Smith & Wesson.
Oh, I like that. We can actually have, there we go. Let's do that one. I like that idea that we don't need a baseball bat. We don't need Louisville Slugger. We need a Smith & Wesson in there, and we can actually create a slogan like that. Maybe they'd be a little more open to that if we make some kind of marketing ploy off of it. I like that idea.
I have a comment for the child support thing.
Go for it.
Mind your own frickin' business.
Mind your own business. So you're not a fan of actually putting it up on the website?
Not government doing it.
Okay. What if it
government? That's what I was talking about. If government gets involved in the family, American family, we're all done.
Sure.
Look what it's done so far.
Sure. Do you support the idea of them posting publicly like the sexual predators in the area, that sort of thing?
Correct.
Okay. Just not posting it saying, hey, this guy didn't pay his child support. The government needs its
No,
money.
because
Let's
you don't
shame
know
this
the
guy.
situation behind it.
Sure.
Why are you God?
Sure. No, I get it. I understand. That makes sense. I like the fact that maybe it should be done maybe as maybe a community thing. To maybe say, hey, this guy, he's working in this area here. We don't know what's going on, but hey, we need to be a little concerned. He doesn't take care of his family, doesn't take care of his kid. Maybe a private community thing as opposed to the government agency. Maybe that's the way we go.
Community, church, yeah, that's all good. Small government is always better.
Hey, small government's always better. I like the way you think on that one. Doug, I appreciate the call, my friend. Let's sneak another one in here. 316-721-8255. Good morning. What's your name?
My name is Bill from Wichita.
Bill, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great.
Good.
Andy, as far as this bat business is concerned, did you hear on the news that these bats are going to be made available? They're going to be locked up first and foremost before they are able to get them.
Oh, so they're not even going to be accessible. These 16-inch baseball bats aren't even going to be somewhat accessible. They have to be locked up. So if a shooter walks in, every shooting that happens in less than a minute, 2 minutes. It's very, very quick. If they walk into a classroom, for example, like the one in Maryland, the guy had an issue with his girlfriend, walked into the classroom to shoot her and shoot one other guy, two other guys, whatever. They have to say, hold on a second, let me unlock the baseball bat out of the locked case and then run over to you and beat you with the baseball bat so that way you won't shoot anybody.
That is correct. When I heard that, I just about fell over. Okay, the second item I wanted to mention to you was this motorcycle police business here in Wichita.
Yes.
First and foremost, why are they all dressed in black? And why are the motorcycles all black? Much harder to see.
That's a good point. I know that they got a lot of heat. The city got a lot of heat when they actually started the motorcycle force that was trying to really start enforcing a lot of the speed limits in the area and some of the traffic violations. But then, if it is going to be black, it is harder to definitely see. I know it looks slick and stylish in some sense, but if it's law enforcement, we need to be able to see you unless their whole goal is trying to be as secretive as possible to try and hide in the corner or hide on the side of the street and then be able to catch you when you're driving by. I know that there's a lot of cars that do that throughout the state and like state troopers sort of thing to where it's black unidentified vehicles that are on the side of the road and that can pick you off. So maybe that was their intent. That'd be a question that we can ask, but you're right. I think that for motorcycles being kind of more of a safety hazard, we need to make them a little more brightly colored to at least spot them, because it is sad of the fact that officer was in that motorcycle accident. What was it, yesterday or a couple days ago? We don't want to see cases like that.
Absolutely not. The third thing I'd like to discuss is I don't know why the police department, the Wichita Police Department, doesn't consider implementing a traffic detail. This is to control the traffic situation in this city. That Kellogg is an absolute racetrack. And all the time I lived in Wichita, I seen them do one surveillance thing, where there's a pedestrian walkway there, just slightly east of the business district, I think, on Kellogg.
Sure.
It goes over Kellogg, and I've seen the police up there with their radar, and then they have cops on the entrance, and ready to chase after these speeders. But, if they would, I think it would pay for itself. I think the tickets that they would issue would generate the revenue to support this program, and it would put the rest of the country on notice. When you come to Wichita, you better obey the traffic laws or you're going to get nailed.
Well, that's very true, and we have different ways of doing that. Bill, I appreciate it. Some great points. I would say, we have different opportunities between the vehicles, between the motorcycles and what they're trying, or whether we started going towards the digital side and we had the cameras, which I'm not a big fan of, but a lot of cities are doing that. They have the cameras, and if you cross the intersection when you're not supposed to, if it's a red or if it's kind of sketchy or if you're going over a certain speed limit, if you're going maybe off the off-ramp or something, then having it just digitally get you a ticket and just mail it out to you. We have a lot of people that like to violate those. And I got to admit, I know I'm saying this publicly on the radio to where a lot of people are hearing this, but I am one that likes to have a little bit heavier of a foot. And I'll be the first to admit it. I haven't gotten a speeding ticket in a while, and I don't get them often. Trust me, I don't go crazy and I don't try and go overboard with this. But I think that whatever the speed limit is, if you're going a couple over that, then that's the appropriate way. If you're going right at it for whatever reason, that bugs the hell out of me. If you're just like one or two under, it drives me nuts. I don't know why. That's just the way I personally operate. But we don't want people going 10 mile an hour over, 15 mile an hour over, and just cruising through like it's a racetrack and then causing accidents, especially with a lot of construction zones. So we need to find ways to be able to regulate that and have it be a happy little system. At the same time, I don't know what the best option is, whether it is more cars, whether it's the motorcycles, but that creates the danger situation, especially with how many motorcycle accidents we see in the area with not just police officers, but with any people that ride motorcycles, and we need to be very cautious of that. By the way, it is getting to get warmer outside. I have a lot of neighbors that ride motorcycles, and it is that time for us to be starting to be aware of them. And maybe with the motorcycles kind of going year-round with the law enforcement, then it keeps our radar up and our gauge to be able to monitor that and watch for them a little more closely throughout the entire year so we don't forget. But we need to be cautious of that. And it is sad, it's devastating, the fact that we had a law enforcement officer get in that type of accident here in the Wichita area. If we can solve something like that, then let's work towards doing it. If not, I mean, it really comes down to us being aware. But what do we do with our traffic hazards? That's a good question. And that's something that I think the city's been working on and that we need to decide as well on the best ways to actually go about that. Wrapping up hour number 2. We got lots more to get to. Your thoughts and calls as well. We got some callers on the line. Stay here. We'll get to you as soon as we come back. This is The Voice of Reason.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Hey, let's wrap up hour number 2. What do you say right here on The Voice of Reason on the Big Talker KQAM? Let's sneak in one more phone call. 316-721-8255. Good morning. What's your name?
Morning, Andy. It's Ted.
Hey, what's going on, Ted? How are you?
Hey, doing pretty good. Yeah, I'm just driving in and saw you guys were talking about the motorcycle officers.
Yeah.
And I almost hit one yesterday. That, I'm just driving to work here up 135 and around the corner, and I see this silhouetted figure standing on the side of the road, pointing directly at my windshield, and with a standard, like he had a pistol in his hand. First thing I went through my mind was, I'm about to be shot. What can I do? And I almost swerved into him to take the threat out.
Sure. And
then realized, they talk about that, people can tell you everything about what person's holding. And, yeah, I hyper-focused on his hand and realized that was a radar gun and, continued on my way. But there for a split second,
it crossed your mind.
I almost swerved into him. Yeah, I mean, I just completely freaked out there for a second, and I remembered that, Wichita just started driving bikes again.
Mm-hmm.
So
now, was this, you said the silhouette of, I'm assuming that it was relatively late at night then?
No, it was here first thing in the morning, but he was right there at 21st Street. There's trees on the side of the road, and the sun was still below the tree line.
Sure.
And so, and the fact that they're wearing black, that just kind of added to it. He's kind of there in the shadow and wearing black and pointing, at cars.
Sure. That is concerning. We don't want to see anything like that. Maybe they need to have reflectors on or some brighter colors. I know that kind of takes away the element of surprise for them, but if they're riding a motorcycle and they have the concern of being hit, at least if you're going to wear the dark clothes and have that suspicion, maybe be on another side of a barrier or something, so that way,
exactly.
Because you're right. I would probably have that same kind of reaction, that if someone had their arms up pointed at me like that, and you're not sure what it is until you get closer, you may want to say, you know what, let's take out the threat here because someone may be coming after me. I don't know what the situation is.
Yeah, I've been to Europe lately, and, their officers are completely in fluorescent. Not saying that we need to go to that, but, yeah, something a little more obvious that as an officer standing there would help.
Absolutely. Hey, I appreciate the call very much. Got to wrap up hour number 2. State Senator Ty Masterson coming up in just a second. This is The Voice of Reason.
It's time for Reason.
The government is nothing more in this situation than the big bad wolf in the cloak of a sheep, trying to look like the innocent little grandmother, trying to look like the innocent little Red Riding Hood when she knocks on the door the first time to intrude into the house to eat the grandmother. The government is the dangerous one in this situation, and we're allowing them to investigate Facebook for things that the private market can solve itself in the private sector.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I'll get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
Oh, yeah, welcome into the Voice of Reason, hour number 3 of the Voice of Reason, broadcasting live out of the heart of the nation here in Wichita, Kansas on the Big Talker, 1480 on the AM side, 102.5 on the FM side, KQAM simulcasting on KGPT TV channel 2610. Welcome aboard. It is the pre-Friday celebration, and it's great to have you along. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. So much happening in the world when it comes to the national politics. Paul Ryan leaving and announcing his resignation as of this fall. The Republicans panicking, saying they're freaking out, saying they don't know what to do with the lack of leadership. What we're going to do, is that going to be changing? I say, your heart's not in it, good riddance, see you later, and I'm not worried, we'll find somebody else. That's happening at the national level. We've talked about the hearings with Facebook, with Mark Zuckerberg, and really not a whole lot coming out of it. Shocker, right? I know, all these hearings, then we never hear any kind of response or any type of closure after that. We heard the big story, I know, Mike Pompeo, now a Chinese agent spy. I don't know if you saw it, according to Kansas.com, Pompeo failed to disclose Chinese business connection of the fact that he owns a Kansas business and bought a product and bought things from a Chinese company that was owned by the Chinese government. So therefore, he is now a Chinese agent as well, did not disclose that, and now we should probably hate him as much as we hate Donald Trump as being a Russian agent. Then at the state level, we have many issues as well, and I'm really excited this hour. We're going to be talking about some of the legislative issues. State Senator Ty Masterson back in studio with us. Great to have you back, my friend.
Well, it's good to be back.
Man, so many things happening. You're out of the weird fumigated area up in Topeka up there, and you can actually be back home. How's it feel to be back in the district?
Oh, it feels great. That place becomes a real bubble, and it's not a productive one. So, yeah, you start to lose sight of what's going on in the real world.
Yeah, a little bit. You know, I was mentioning, we were talking about off the air, but the media loves to talk about you. They love to talk about you. Every time that we hear something happening in the Senate with a vote, with a piece of legislation, with a debate, it's what leadership's doing. And then what State Senator Ty Masterson's doing.
Because they hate the conservative message, and I'm the messenger, right? So you kill the messenger. Attempt to, yeah. How's the Truth Caucus going right now? You started this here in the state, and it's been growing very well. This year you have more people on both sides and both chambers working with that. Are you still seeing some growth, still seeing some activity? Yeah, actually, we put about 40 members in this year of the legislative members.
Wow.
And I think second weekend we'd hit that 40 mark, and I basically announced, I think the membership drive's over, because I don't want to get so big you can't move as a unit, right? Because that's how you affect. We're really defensive in posture, right? The liberals all run the place for the most part. So we have bylaws. We're formally organized, and if 80% of our membership agree, we try to all vote together, kind of a thing. So if you're too big, you'll never get your 80%, right, and to vote. But you're going very well. It's really just trying to unify and articulate a conservative message, because it's very difficult to get that outside the walls of the Capitol.
How much does the Republican Party at the state level listen to you guys?
The party, we do well within the party itself, the apparatus of the party. But of course, as you know, I mean, some of the most liberal members in the legislature are registered Republicans. Yeah, the three most liberal senators are all Johnson County Republicans.
Wow. I know that there's certain areas in the state like Johnson County to where we have a lot of that, but overall, I mean, we saw some of the, maybe some moderate-ish coming out of the western part of the state, some conservative areas like yourself and some of the surrounding areas in Wichita and around these areas, but where's kind of the pockets that we need to be concerned about when it comes to the Republicans to say that they're Republican, but they're not necessarily Republican, that like to vote predominantly on the progressive side of the aisle? Well,
Johnson County is clearly the hot spot for the rhino, if you will, the hard left registered as a Republican. You get quite a bit of that now out in western Kansas in our rural areas. I don't know what to attribute that to, other than the main employer out there is government, right? Whether you're a local government or a school district, but you main employers are government, and that tends to lean you that way.
They like that. They like that. Well, it's good the Republican Party listens to you. It's sad that we have to have a caucus within the party, because the party was supposed to be really the caucus itself of the like-minded individuals wanting to promote that idea, and now we've broken ourselves into not only just the party, but the caucus within the party, and it's kind of broken down to marginalize ourselves even more so, and it's a little sad.
Right, and we're trying to bring as many members in as we can that have that aren't just infiltrators trying to damage what we're doing. Right?
Sure.
Because it is our principles, our stated principles are the Republican platform.
That's what it is. That's what the platform is.
So,
yeah.
But just to give you a good example of how far off the rail some of them are, one of the Johnson County senators, she managed on the microphone in debate this year to call, I think she called Catholics sick bigots. She called babies tissue, and she called tax money our money. All in live debate.
Well, the solid Republican platform.
Right.
Yes.
And she was a Republican.
She's a Republican. That's fantastic. Let's talk about this session. It's been very slow for the first part of it. Now that we have the study, which I do want to get to that study as well, the educational finance, but we really were waiting to hear what was going to happen with the session until that study came out, and then everything was going to kind of fall into place. Leading up to that, what was going on? Were there talks in the background about education? Were there talks about the tax debate? Was it just focused on other issues? Your thoughts on how the session has gone so far, leading up to the point of that research study coming out?
There were a lot of behind the scenes activity up there, on different issues. And like for us, for example, Truth Caucus, we were trying to push forward matching tax policy. The federal government had their cuts, and so there's a little bit of a disconnect because they raised their standard deduction. Actually, we got that done in the Senate.
Okay.
With the Truth Caucus, we were able to get a tax reduction plan through the Senate that matched the standard deduction and gave you your deductions back on mortgage and medical and property tax. That some of that had been reduced, so we were that was positive. So that happened behind the scenes. But yeah, everybody was waiting for that study. And then it ended up being the cardinal sin of don't know the question before you ask the question. Although there's a lot of misconceptions even about that study, to tell you the truth.
Well, talk about that study a little bit. When it came out, everybody was all gung-ho about doing it for the Republican side. The Democrats were saying, it's not going to be worth anything. It's going to be a bunch of junk, yada, yada, yada. Then the study came out, and now they're saying, this is fantastic. This goes right in line with the Supreme Court. And then we're starting to find all the mishaps in it, to where there are certain districts that had the wrong number of guesstimated students that are actually enrolled in public education. They're saying that with the current funding, we should be close to 91, 92% graduation rate. And then we increase it to get like a 96% graduation rate.
Which isn't achieved anywhere in the nation.
In the nation. So what happened? What should we take away from this?
Well, it's like main takeaway is, and there's been 50-some academic studies done nationwide, and without exception, it's academia. Without exception, no matter what state it was in, what the baseline was, where they started with, they always recommend more money.
Sure.
Right? That's the recommendation. But if you really drill into that study, it's that aspiration, if you will, of this unachievable 95% that created that top-line number. But that's what the left all push at. Sure. If you dig into that study and create just an aspiration to be the best in the nation, which is Iowa at 91, it would indicate we're already adequately funded.
But they don't want to hear that.
They don't. No. They cherry pick it just like they cherry pick Montoy and Gannon. Right? Montoy, they cherry pick that top number, but they ignore everything, the nuts and bolts of it that says, well, Wichita's too big. They've got districts that are too small. You need to consolidate, break up. You ignore all that and you just pile money.
Right.
Same thing's happening here. This study, interestingly enough, said the same thing. There's efficiency of scale. You ignore all that, and they look at this top line number, and it's ridiculous. We've had that case study. Montoy happened. We piled $2 billion more in annually now.
Sure.
And you have no change in graduation rate.
None at all.
And now they're saying, well, now you put $2 billion more in, you'll get a change.
We can start doing that. Yeah.
Right.
I don't know where to go from there, because if they take this into consideration, now we're seeing the bill that's $534 million, whatever. We know it's more than that incrementally over the next years, and it just piles on top of one another, which we'll get to in a second. But if we don't stop it in its tracks, if we don't cut the head off the beast, if we don't actually draw the line in the sand, this time I really don't know where we can go from here on out. Governor Colyer said that he supports this bill because he believed it was a compromise. But this one just really shows that we're willing to just throw more money at it and hoping it's going to get better.
Well, with the makeup of the current legislature, I think it's a disaster, but probably the best I think he could hope for, in the sense that I know he's trying to run for election and wanting the issue to die. But truth is, it's never going to be solved until the people clarify what those words in the Constitution really mean and who has the power to define what suitable is.
Mm-hmm. Is there talks about the constitutional amendment still? I know the leadership in the Senate, Senate President Susan Weigel mentioned before that she would not address a educational funding bill until we address the constitutional amendment. Then they turned and said, no, we're going to address the amendment first, or the funding first, and then the amendment, and then it's kind of faded away. Are we still talking about the amendment?
Well, there's certainly still talking about it. I don't know how reasonable it is now. Basically, the left has gotten their way to a large degree. They didn't get everything. I mean, they were early on trying to get another $800 million. And by the way, this is new money. And people forget we added $200 million last year. Mm-hmm. That goes to $300 million new this year. They added another 100, and that's not even talked about. The 500 and some overtime is on top of that.
On top of that, so we're really still looking at $800 million that we've increased over the last 2 years.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, I mean, they were looking at $2 billion from this study with the incremental. Are we going to get to what the numbers realistically look like as close to $2 billion?
I think, obviously, cumulatively over time, you'll be there. Yeah,
we'll be close to that.
Which will require tax increases. They won't require it this year. I'll concede that, right? Because we just had a massive retroactive tax last year.
Right.
So, of course, you're not going to need it this year. But it does outspend our resources within 24 months.
Well, I think we called that. I mean, I said that the first time that this came up, I said we're going to find a way to raise spending, to say that we solved the issue, not raise taxes, to say that we did it without raising your taxes after we did the massive increase, get through the election cycle, and next year you guys look at the 2-year budget cycle again, you're going to come back and say, oh, we're out of money, we need to raise your taxes again, but we just got elected, so we got 2 years for you to forget all about it again.
What's hilarious to me is the arguments the left had against us as conservatives for trying to cut taxes and keep taxes low was you're doing these accounting gimmicks and you're deferred capers and you're not paying transportation. They're using the exact same arguments. They're just using them. They're doing what they said you should never do, but they're doing it to increase spending beyond our means versus leave the taxes low.
The Democrats love to do that. Pass the blame. It's kind of like the whoever smelt it dealt it kind of thing, and I think that's what they're playing right now. So State Senator Ty Masterson, let's go ahead and take a break. If you want to call in, ask a question, make a comment, you're more than welcome to. 316-721-8255. Lots more to get to. 19 minutes past the hour. This is the Voice of Reason.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier on the Big Talker, KQAM.
Welcome back into the Voice of Reason. 25 minutes past the hour. Appreciate you hanging out. State Senator Ty Masterson in studio with us for the hour. Your thoughts and calls are appreciated. 316-721-8255. And with that, let's go right to the phones. Good morning. What's your name?
Good morning, Andy. It's Ron.
Ron, what's happening, my friend?
Oh, just living the dream.
Hey, more fun every day.
Thank you, Senator Masterson, for coming on and giving us an update of what's going up at the Puzzle Palace in Topeka. And my question is has there been any discussion about administrative realignment within the school districts? And I'm going to drop off and listen.
Well, obviously, I mean, the discussions aren't happening in the circles that they need to happen in, right? So the conservative movement and the conservative in both houses are always talking about that. And by the way, the study, going back to that, confirms it, that there are efficiencies of scale, disinefficiencies of scale in the studies, what they call, that show how inefficient it is to have that. And so if you're really basing off the study, we need to do something with the alignment. But those discussions are not going on inside the circles of power within the left.
Oh, of course not. Of course not. And we've mentioned many times that if the local school district is complaining about more money and needing more money, maybe they should budget their money a little bit more appropriately and responsibly at the local level. The last time you guys gave them the tax or the spending increase last year, what did they do? They gave the teachers a 2.8% salary increase, while they turned around and gave the superintendent a 6% salary increase here in the Wichita district, which shows the priority of what they wanted. And it didn't go to the teachers while they were so proud, and that was their PR stunt of saying, we gave teachers salary increases because that's what we needed to do.
Interesting on the Wichita side. So the studies, the bureaucracy is so large that it's a better efficiency scale if you broke it up into 5 or 6 districts. And believe it or not, there's enough layers of superintendents inside the current administration.
Oh, sure.
You could actually break it up and probably get rid of a few.
How many deputy superintendents? We just hired a brand new deputy superintendent.
Yeah, with an indeterminate salary at first. We're just going to bring you in.
Let's bring a new guy in here. Yeah, let's give it a try. That's what we need to focus on. And that's what we really, and if we're going to start fighting the Supreme Court, we need to start fighting the local school boards and saying, look, if you're not going to manage it yourself, maybe that is a responsibility that we take to the state level and say, you guys lay out the formula, you lay out exactly where the money's going to go for each department, for each agency, for each teacher, for each whatever. And if they want you guys to have that responsibility, maybe you should take it on. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what the response is.
I don't either. And they're the court's in such a powerful spot, the way we concede all the time. All they've got to do is review and say, still not enough, right? And just leave it wide open for us to fight about, and then come back and say it's still not enough.
Still not enough. And they don't really care. I mean, Alan Roop is just, he doesn't care as long as he's getting a paycheck. He's going to continue to say it's not enough.
He's made millions of dollars.
How much money have we
He's
sunk
over
into this?
$7.5 million, somewhere around there. That's to him. I mean, to his law firm. Yeah.
Yeah, well, efficient spending of taxpayer money there. And then, of course, like you said, the Supreme Court just says no, and then you guys are in a tizzy to try and figure out what to do next. It's time for something to change.
They figured it out, though, now, and they're retaining the case, right? So now it was Montoy, and then it's Gannon. Well, now it's Gannon 3 or Gannon 4. And I watch this. If we don't get a constitutional amendment, we'll have Gannon 25, right? They'll just retain it. So then whatever new law you pass as it pertains wouldn't apply to Gannon because it's a prior case.
And they can revise that one again and go all over.
Yeah, they're going to hold on. I guarantee they'll hold on to this thing, no matter what the money is.
That really shows the importance of what we need to do with the constitutional amendment to take that power away from the Supreme Court. So no matter what they say, then we can say, I would like to say, go for it. But right now we don't have the power or the numbers or the right people to do that.
And that's the holy grail of solving the problem is the people to clarify it's the legislature. We even had, going back to the Truth Caucus, some internal conversations about money as far as negotiations. If you can really get a constitutional amendment, if you can get school choice, accountability, it would be worth that amount of money right now, just because eventually you would catch up to it, right, and solve the problem. But that's not where we're at.
When we come back, we got to take a break here in about a minute. We have some calls on the line as well we'll get to. But when we come back, I want to talk about, with all this money going into it, even though we're not going to this year because we've seen, 10 months with that tax receipt higher than projections, which means the tax increases worked and we're doing great. It has nothing to do with the tax breaks at the federal level sort of thing. But what tax increases we could potentially be seeing in the next couple of years. And then I want to shift gears a little bit to some of the school safety and some of the gun debates that we've seen. I was surprised. I was wrong on this one. I was right about the guesstimation on the taxes. I was wrong in the sense that I thought we wouldn't talk about the Second Amendment this year in an election year. It came up pretty harsh this year, so we'll talk about that when we come back as well. State Senator Ty Masterson, if you want to call in, stay on the line. We got some calls on here. Bottom of the hour news. This is The Voice of Reason.
The fastest growing radio show in Kansas.
What? How's he do that?
That's what I'm talking about.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Well, we do what we can. Welcome back into The Voice of Reason, making it happen today on a Thursday. The pre-Friday celebration has begun. You're one of the few that actually enjoys my edgier music in the morning. And of course, now that you're here, it's not playing any type of edgy music, so I'm going to have to throw something in there for this because this is a little ridiculous. We got to get you pumped up in the morning.
I need something to blow the liberal dust off of.
I know, right? See, that's what I do. I wake up at 4 in the morning, which is not fun. I'll admit that. But driving in, I try and ways to get pumped up, get excited, or get really upset about something to be fired up when I come on the show. And that's what I do. I listen to that and be like, take that, Democrats. Yeah. 316-721-8255. I want to show, we got some calls on the line I want to get to in a second, but I need to shift gears for a second. One of the cases that's been really big apparently this year with all the votes, and I get it somewhat with a lot of the school shootings, has been school safety. and the big March for Our Lives, the walkout that we saw, many of the students around the Wichita area walking out of class for the March for Our Lives. They've organized some other stuff, smaller ones, but now we're talking about school safety. And the first thing that came up when we started talking about this was, of course, gun control. And it started off with some nice bills of like state reciprocity, which is a good thing, but then got tagged on with raising the age to 18 or lowering it to 18, but then trying to register more people and then repealing carry on campus and then wanting to ban different types of weapons. And it just turned into this whole gun control debacle, which I was shocked about because I didn't think during an election year, many of the moderate Republicans who want a good rating with the NRA, because there's a lot of NRA members in the state of Kansas, that they would want to have a bad rating going into this new election. But we saw a lot of these votes. What did you see up there?
Well, I mean, we did. So we were trying to, the guys like me, the pro NRA guys that believe in the Second Amendment, we're trying to clean up some things like the reciprocity. We want our licensees to be recognized in other states, and
sure.
So we knew with that bill on the table that we would have a fist fight on the floor with the left, since they're basically in control, trying to peel back some of those rights. So but we were effective of getting those bills out, and so we did have those debates. But it was great to have this year because there were a few that I would say are squishy on that issue that voted solidly with us because they know it's an election year.
Sure. No, and I guess that helps to a degree. So some of the measures that could have potentially then, like repealing carry on campus, that potentially could have in other years gone a different way, we are actually be able to defend and secure what we have right now then.
Right. And we're trying to take steps to make sure that happens. And we were successful at getting some of those pieces through. Now, the main bill, the reciprocity bill, the left, they were able to play with it on the House side, and right now it's still sitting under the table. We hope we can get it in the wrap-up session the end of April.
Okay.
But just really some minor things have passed so far.
I was really surprised. There were a lot of Republicans that came out against the Eddie Eagle program, which I don't understand. I don't know why. They didn't like the fact that we want to teach kids to say, hey, there's a gun. Let's go tell an adult about the thing, which is really what the Eddie Eagle program is. Why would we have even Republicans say, that's a bad program?
Because Republican doesn't mean anything. Right? And what's funny to me is that these are the same people that are almost worship education, if you will, right? So education is the be-all, end-all,
sure.
But we don't want to educate you on that.
Well, no. I mean, that's a bad thing to be educated on.
Right.
We should be scared of it.
It seems foolish. You want that education, right? That's what education on weapons makes us safer.
Mm-hmm. Here's the big question for you, and I read this story last hour. 16-inch tiny little baseball bats locked up in a secure little vault for the security of the teacher to come after you. Maybe that might stop the shooter. They may second guess the fact that there's a tiny little baseball bat that you hit tiny little balls with and that you have to run across the room to hit them with. That might deter them from coming in and shooting up the school.
I mean, it's so laughable. It's just so silly. Just go back to the rocks then, right? They're talking about at least you can throw a rock a little further. I don't even get the symbolism of that, to have a tiny little baseball bat.
And I don't even get the idea with the rocks. I think that's an absurd idea to have children want to throw rocks. I mean, come on. Pretty soon they're going to say, well, if the kid in the back of the class grabbed the rock and threw it and it didn't throw it hard enough, you could hit the kid in front of you, sort of thing. And, so it's going to cause all these other catastrophes, but it's just a stupid idea, I think, a ridiculous idea for the rocks. But then you put the tiny little base. Now, I don't know if this is a joke or not. I really hope it is. But with the rock idea, I wouldn't be surprised if people tried this.
Oh, I agree. We kind of have the worst of what you can have in Kansas. So nobody believes, actually it's currently legal for a local school board to allow anyone on their faculty to carry.
Okay.
But nobody believes that any school does that. But it's unknowable. I actually had our legislative research search that, but since they don't have to disclose that, I don't know that any school doesn't do that. So, but when I say we got the worst, so we might have some schools that have that kind of security, but nobody believes it's there. We'd be better off if everybody thought all our schools were hardened, but none of them actually were. Right? Because it's about that perception that this is a difficult target to get into.
Exactly. It's kind of like the hidden menu item where you can actually pick it. We don't know that we can, but we technically try and could right now. There's a lot. We had some calls of teachers from outside of the state that had taught in inner city schools and other big city areas in other states, and they said, you know what? The faculty and the teachers were starting to carry on their own without the approval of the school district because they didn't care. They wanted to protect themselves and the children because they didn't know what was going to happen, and they were getting pretty scared.
Well, we had a teacher from Wichita teaching. He teaches here locally. He testified on what we were calling the Safer Schools Act. Had a teacher out in another district in Butler County come in and he submitted written. But the point was, he said, hey, you need to let me protect these kids. And he was a Marine. I mean, so he, someone who's well equipped, and the questions from the committee were like, well, don't you have an SRO? His response was, the building I teach in is a half a mile long. You know how long, by the time that guy ran from one end to the other, he goes, whatever the active shooter would have been done. Right. And I didn't have the opportunity to help protect my kids. I'm asking him about mace or something. And he said, what am I supposed to do? Throw it at him?
Wow. Unbelievable. I mean, you're right. Most school shootings last, 2.5 minutes?
Right.
And it's done and over.
Yeah, the tragedy on that Florida deal is you had an SR, didn't even go in, number one.
He ran out to his car.
You let a guy go, you could have killed that many people with a single shot in 6 or 7 minutes. It's just, it really isn't about the weapon as much as it is that guy had all the opportunity in the world.
Unbelievable. Well, hopefully we can come to some kind of reasonable conclusion on that one and actually get our teachers and students safe. Let's go to the phones here. The phones are lighting up across the board. Let's start at line number 1 here. Good morning. What's your name?
Hey, Andy. It's Pam.
Pam, how are you today?
Hey, pretty good. It's so nice to hear Ty's voice. You used to be my guy until they redistrict everybody in, so I miss you.
Well, I'd love to have you back.
My question wasn't about the Second Amendment stuff, but it goes back to, don't bring a knife to a gunfight.
Yeah, or a tiny little baseball bat.
Yeah, but, rip down these gun-free zone signs. And it's not the fact that we have so many school shootings. The ones we have are so blown up. Mm-hmm. If we want to talk about what's killing kids, let's talk cars, swimming pools, space heaters.
Teenage suicide rates and online bullying.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
I just figure you can turn your computer off. But my big question was, how did the Supreme Court get all this power that I had always thought, the money power was in the House? And I don't understand how they got all this power, and why did we not do something with a constitutional amendment or whatever when all the conservatives were up there?
Kind of before it was too late sort of thing. Yeah, that's a really good question.
It is a good question. And actually, the Senate passed a constitutional amendment in the past and never were able to get it through the House. And I don't know so much given to the court as they took it, right? When it became a fully appointed Sebelius court,
sure,
that's when they decided that they were going to weigh in,
ramp up,
and define what suitable was. And we've just never been able to even that power. What's funny is not funny, it's kind of sad. Watch the public debate says the legislature is trying to infringe on the court, right? And you look at that. That's what they're saying.
Yeah.
They're saying the legislature is trying to take judicial power. And quite frankly, it's
How
the
dare
complete
you step
opposite.
on their toes,
right?
yeah.
The judiciary has reached into the legislative area, and just even the attempt to take that back is now seen as a threat, like you're somehow trying to threaten the judicial branch of the government, which has become all-powerful.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Every news article we see is, the state legislature not abiding by the Supreme Court's rulings, which, of course, come on, give me a break. Heaven forbid that we actually have a balance of powers here. Pam, I appreciate it. That's a great question. Great call. Let's go back to the phones. Take caller number 2. Good morning. What's your name?
Hi, this is Helen.
Helen, how are you?
I'm doing just great, and I agree with Pam. What's the matter with our government and our United States is that people are not being taught the Constitution. And Article 1, Section 1 says, all legislative or lawmaking powers herein granted shall be vested in a Congress of the United States, which shall consist of a Senate and a House of Representatives. And in Article 3, it says, in Section 1, it says the judicial power of the United States shall be vested in one Supreme Court and in such inferior courts as the Congress may, from time to time, ordain and establish. The judges, both of the Supreme and inferior courts, shall hold their offices during good behavior. Section 2, judicial power shall extend to all cases in law and equity arising under the Constitution, the laws of the United States. The judicial power the judges do not have the power to make law, change law, or cause or tell the Congress how to spend money or raise money or whatever. And we've allowed the judicial powers to usurp the powers of the Congress.
We do that a lot. I appreciate that, Helen. No, it's a great point. And
same is true in Kansas.
Yeah, same is true in Kansas. Same is true. We've seen a lot of courts begin to do that. They've realized now, the progressives have, is that the courts becoming an activist movement are very beneficial, because once the courts make a ruling, then we somehow just believe, like, okay, the guys and the girls in the black robes made the decision. We just have to abide by it now and just go along with it, instead of saying, wait a second, did you actually, number one, have the right to judge on that? And did you make the right judgment? And we can fight that if we deem necessary.
I mean, actually, Kansas's constitution is also very clear. You're right. The appropriating powers, lawmaking powers are all vested in the legislature. What the courts have successfully done is been able to use that word suitable, shall make suitable provision for finance. Mm-hmm. And then they've turned that into adequate and equitable, and it means this dollar amount, that dollar amount, and it use these Rose standards. And I mean, actually, I thought the Attorney General had a great visual aid. So he had on one sheet of paper the 15 words of the Constitution. Sure. You shall make suitable provision for finance.
Sure.
Then he had the stack of the Moncoy decision, which was about a half-inch stack of paper, trying to clarify this. Then he had Gannon, which was about a 3-inch stack of paper. And now he has Gannon 2, which is like an 8-inch stack of paper. And he said, this is what's happening. This is trying to clarify this, trying to clarify this. So I just used to say, it's time for the people to clarify those 15 words.
Exactly. Well, that's really what we have to do. We're running a little short on time here, but you guys go back up. You guys are going to work on tweaking the last little bit of the finance. We got to ask you, the $80 million error. What's this $80 million error, and what do we have to do to fix this? Is this going to cause a prolonged decision on educational finance?
It's definitely going to cause a discussion. Fortunately, though, our adjournment resolution will not allow us to go past May 4th. So it's going to have
Too bad.
I'm hoping we can run the clock out on them again. But I think just they intended, I say those that drafted or the idea, or came up with the idea, they were wanting to front load this plan with $150 million of new money, and
Mm-hmm.
the way the technical language, they're putting in $70 million. So there's your $80 million delta.
Oh, so they actually want more up front to actually go right
that's
away.
the difference. So the way this plan's written, it puts more money, it front loads it. What's interesting though is even in their plan, this $500 million plan, there are districts that lose money. There are you go these small districts like Little Hamilton out in Greenwood County. I looked at it. They're taking a double-digit percentage hit. There's not going to be any teacher raises out there. I guarantee it. And
but we're for the teachers.
All right. This is how they generally ignore. It's just the little ones that have no political power.
Unbelievable. Any other issues that may come up before the end of the session, or is that going to be pretty much it? Is the spending and the taxes? Maybe I don't know about the taxes, but I mean, I did have to laugh at some of the stuff that went through this year. It was the spinning of the wheels of vehicles. I'm glad that now I know I can't spin my wheels out and burn out at in an intersection.
That.
Yeah, yeah. I'm like, okay, really? I'm glad we're focused on priorities. And then of course the selling of the liquor and the alcohol at 6 a.m., which now I'm glad I can have my breakfast before I come into work, sort of thing. So,
or alcoholic candy.
Yeah, right. There we go. I guess I do have to ask, the issue of agricultural hemp, medical marijuana, anything of that sort may pop its
agricultural. The industrial hemp has been moving forward.
Okay.
Yeah, and it has passed actually to the point for, I think they're doing some test areas for industrial hemp. You will see in the veto session, you'll see. Hopefully, we'll be able to finish the reciprocity bill on the Second Amendment. We have passed with a tax cut, if you will, in the Senate. Truth Caucus was successful there, got a tax cut, basically matching the federal piece to try to get that money passed back through to the people.
Sure.
Also, we were pushing utilities, passing that back through
right.
rates. So those are happening. We will, obviously, with this quote-unquote error in the school bill, have to have that conversation again too.
Sure. Well, there's a few loose ends to tie up there, I guess, and I'm glad that the industrial hemp is kind of moving. It's kind of interesting to see where that's going to go. I know that they tried to push for the full-on marijuana thing. That didn't go anywhere this year. That got shut down again pretty quickly. But and I'm glad you mentioned the utility rates. That has been an issue that we've talked about off and on, was the utility rates, getting money back. Maybe we can see some tax cuts, like you guys said. Maybe some sales tax. I don't know. Groceries would like to be a lot cheaper. That would be nice.
Well, there's a current bill right now, so anybody that can contact their members that has passed the Senate, I'm sure the House will try to thwart it because they want every dollar they can get to fund, the more money to schools. But it's sitting there, and it increases the standard deduction like the federal side did. Put your mortgage and medical deductions, property tax deductions back on. So it'd be good to have that bill move forward.
State Senator Ty Masterson, it's always a pleasure, my friend. We love to get you in studio. You guys, I don't know how you do it up there all the time. There's a lot of shenanigans that happen, and it would frustrate the heck out of me. But keep up the good fight. You got obviously, the phones blow up. You got a lot of support around here. We appreciate what you do every day.
Well, I appreciate what you do every day. Thanks, Andy.
We do what we can. Let's wrap up the show here. State Senator Ty Masterson. We'll get him back in studio again, probably after the session, to do a recap once this is all said and done. Your thoughts and calls the last few minutes when we come back. This is The Voice of Reason.
You're listening to The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier. Opening markets on KQAM, brought to you by Carlson Hydraulics. We make things move. Carlson Hydraulics.
Lower in the grains, but higher in the livestock, starting our Thursday that way. Let's check the ag futures markets this morning, see how things are shaping up. Brady Charles at Schwederman Incorporated has the information. Some tough going in some of the grains and soybeans this morning.
Welcome back into The Voice of Reason, wrapping up the program today on a Thursday. The pre-Friday celebration rolls right along, baby, and we love having you here. Appreciate you checking out the show today, wherever you may be. Radio, TV, Facebook Live, does not matter. Thanks again to State Senator Ty Masterson, a leading voice in the conservative message in the Senate side. We appreciate that very, very much. Look, what we have to have when it comes to the House and when it comes to the Senate, we have to have a leading voice, a guiding voice. We have to have a message to rally around, and that's what we need to have. We need to have the talking points. We have to have conservatives for a long time have struggled being able to explain their position, other than being the obstructionists, because that's apparently what we're really good at. At the federal level, the conservatives, the Tea Party, the conservative fringe side, maybe, if that's what you want to call them, even the Republicans during the time of minorityship, they talk about being the obstructionists. They want to obstruct. They want to stop Barack Obama. They want to stop the Democrats. Once they get into leadership position, they don't know what to do. And it's time that we practiced what we preach when it comes to conservatism. And so we think what he does, what so many others do up there in Topeka, we need to fight this fight. We have a little bit of ways to go left for this session, and we need to have the opportunity to say, wait a second, let's put the brakes on this and figure out what we're doing. If we followed this study after the Democrats criticized it at the beginning for educational finance, then they embraced it after it came out and said we needed more money, it would say, if you actually looked at it, that we're actually adequately funding our educational system, and we should have close to a 91, 92% graduation rate right now. Right now, with the current funding. So why don't we? Because it's not a money problem. It's a distribution and a management problem at the local level. School districts, get ready, because there's going to be some changes. We're going to focus our attention elsewhere, not just at the evil, terrible Republicans that hate puppy dogs and children. And that's what we need to take away from this. We've done very well being able to defend the Second Amendment in the state of Kansas for the most part. Speaking of, by the way, we have a big announcement that I'll start announcing tomorrow, but next week is going to be a big week. I will be on location for a day, and we'll tell you more about that tomorrow, talking about the Second Amendment, talking about guns, and talking about ways that we can defend the Second Amendment in the state of Kansas. More news and more info coming on that tomorrow. I'll make that big announcement. Really looking forward to next week. But conservatives, don't lose hope. Don't lose the fight. Don't give up. Don't get frustrated. Don't walk away. We have a long fight to go, and I love it, and that's what we're going to continue to do because we're going to do it together. As always, we appreciate you hanging out with us today. This is your show. It's time to speak up, speak out, speak loud, speak proud, speak the truth, and always speak some reason, baby. This is The Voice of Reason. Have a great Thursday.